Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Modern Market. This is our daily show from Monday to Friday at 7 a.m. Eastern Time, 11 a.m. GMT, where we get into everything to do with the NFT market, the crypto market, and how to make some or a lot of money on the internet. I'm your host, Bcheck. I'm joined by my legendary co-host, Sammy. Legendary is not with us today. He'll be back with us on Monday. And we are going to get into everything that's been going on in the past 24 hours. But just a reminder before we do that, nothing that we say here is financial advice. This modern market is exceptionally risky. We do not know anything for sure. So please do proceed with caution and exercise your own judgment. With that out of the way, Sammy, it is Friday. It is the 22nd of March. How are you doing? How are you feeling? How are you feeling about the market?
I'm good. TGIF. I'm getting that anxious feeling coming into the weekend where stuff's about to pop off, but I kind of want to relax a little bit. So trying to find that balance, trying to get stuff done. Yeah, it's a busy time to be alive. There's so much going on.
Yeah, a lot going on. I don't know if it was just a personal reflection yesterday. I felt like yesterday was a little bit quieter in the market. Like the day before, the NFT market had pumped like aggressively, like really, really aggressively, and things just kind of consolidated. Crypto was like a little bit quieter as well in the past 24 hours. Like, I don't know if that's just me. Doesn't mean I was less busy because we're still doing all of these airdrop things, still doing all kinds of stuff for the business, but it just felt at least the market was just calm for one day. But that might be in my imagination. I don't know. Did you sense that at all, Sam?
Well, I think there's obviously been a bit of a pullback in terms of prices, but I don't think that's really reflective of what's going on. Obviously, you had the CryptoValley stuff pump significantly yesterday. Everyone seems to be crazy about base at the moment. I'm keen to see what happens with this mutatios for Xcopy, or whether it is just an open edition with no utility. Yeah, it's just a lot of things going on. So yeah, just trying to keep ahead of it. Even though that price is going down, it's actually a bit of a relief because I feel like I'm not quite packed yet. I think I've taken some.
How many of these million base mints were you? Like you decided that you wanted a lot of them, didn't you?
Yeah, I did 420 for the culture, so.
Yeah, it's funny with Xcopy, everyone just goes completely crazy and is completely unable to control themselves. I remember when he did, what's the one that everyone has? Like it was a 1 ETH mint at the time. What's the one?
Max Payne.
Max Payne, that's the one. It's not after, yeah, Max Payne. Everyone completely FOMO'd and went completely insane and just assuming like, oh, there's got to be something else. There's got to be something else. And I don't think, well, I think he has done some burns after. But
no,
yeah.
he rugged holders on that one. I'm not gonna lie. Like
That's
basically, it was like a year on the anniversary. He gave away one of one, which was like everyone thought it was going to be a reveal to its own PFP. There's so much speculation around it, and yeah, it was literally just a single one of one went to one holder. So that was like, I think it was like 9,000 plus people were just like, oh, so I just have this this open edition now for like 2 free ETH that I paid for it.
Well, yeah, but I don't see how it's a rug because he never said it was going to be anything else.
Yeah, I know that's a joke on my side, but yeah, in terms of the people who like pulled up on the hype train and thought that this thing was going to be like the new Xcopy PFP, they got rugged by their own hype and their own imagination, essentially.
Yeah, I do think though. I mean, for $2, why not get a few? Why not get a few? Especially it's on base as well. And my instinct actually. I mean, I have no way to corroborate this, no definitive way to confirm. I think a lot of the people who are doing whatever it is they're doing, whether it's either going over to optimism, we heard yesterday about potential millions of dollars paid to Starbucks to just like participate on Polygon. I think a lot of these artists will be getting, even though they'll earn money from their mint, I think people are getting incentivized to like, look, come over, do a bit on base, come over, do a bit on optimism, come over, do a bit on Arbitrum. Like that's why they have these big grant funds. I don't know if that will ever be public or whether that's definitely true. That's just one of the things I've been thinking. So
I'd actually agree with that. I think the amount of transactions that you put through just doing airdrop farming, and all of a sudden you can put through hundreds of transactions, and you get like in return you get an Xcopy open edition for $2 each. I'm just like, this is a no-brainer.
You, You've just done loads of transactions on base, so pretty happy with that, irrespective of whether there's anything else. Love it. Interesting way to think about it. Funky, your hand is raised. Welcome to the stage, my friend. Before we get into the headlines, before we get into CryptoValleys, before we get into the NIM airdrop, before we get into Avalanche, $1 million incentives, how are you doing? How are you feeling?
GM, my friends, happy Friday. I'm feeling great. I was actually just going to ask if Legendary wasn't here because he made too much money on airdrops this week, and now he's out buying all sorts of gadgets.
I was actually going to make that joke at the start. I was going to say that, but then I thought maybe not.
And then Sammy gave me intense FOMO because I thought like, oh, I minted 11 of those things, and he minted 420. So clearly, I am not the level of degen that Sammy is.
No, not at all. We have some real degens. Legendary is degening away his winnings, potentially. I cannot confirm or deny that. Right, let's get into all of the headlines. As always, you can find them pinned up top in the snapshot. And then we're going to open it up for discussion a little bit after we focus on some airdrop strategies today. I'm going to talk through what I actually wrote about in my newsletter, because there was a big win for some of us. Let's get into it from the snapshot, which is pinned up top, starting with some price action. We've got Bitcoin down a couple of percent at 65.5, ETH down a couple of percent at 3.4K, Solana down a few percent at $175. Getting into the first headline, number one, the NIM airdrop checker is live. Dymension stakers, Pudgy Penguins holders, and Prime holders were big winners, but there were a few other participants who, particularly gaming holders, who were rewarded there too. Number two, CryptoValleys characters launched for free and teleport to 0.4 ETH floor. There's a lot of talk about CryptoValleys on the timeline, and I think this is a game that's being built on Blast. These details were provided by Mintify, and we've got Mintify CEO Evan with us today. We'd love to hear his thoughts when we get into this a little bit later. They said, congrats to the CryptoValleys team on the successful launch. CryptoValleys characters have seen $2 million in volume in just 30 minutes through Mintify's Blast 2 marketplace, with $3 million in active listings and bids. So all the people complaining about nothing going on Blast, like what can we do? What can we do? Well, I think some stuff is happening and more stuff is going to catch a bid as we move towards May. And finally, final headline, Avalanche announces $1 million in rewards for meme coin traders and liquidity providers. Decrypt Media shared that during phase one of its initiative, the Avalanche Foundation will provide $1 million in incentives in AVAX for native meme coins on StakeHut and Trader Joe. The Avalanche Foundation will use Uniswap V3 to provide mining rewards to those injecting liquidity into its native meme coin pools. We're going to dive into some more of the details there to think whether that could be worth it or not. But interesting to see that people appreciate the importance of meme coins so much that they're willing to incentivize people in to that end. Getting into some notable sales, we had a NodeMonk Laser selling for 2 Bitcoin, Bored Ape Pizza selling for 20.8 ETH, and a CryptoPunk Wild Hair selling for 57 ETH. Going around some floor prices, we've got CryptoPunks at 49.8 ETH, down 1%, Bored Apes at 14.1, Mutants at 2.5, D-Gods at 1.6, Captains at 3.8, Azukis at 4.3, Penguins up a couple of percent at 14.9, Mad Lads flat at 165 Solana, and the Nouns winning bid was at 5.7 ETH. Sammy, those are the headlines. That is the price action. Before we get into the specific headlines, is there anything catching your eye in terms of the numbers from the NFT market?
Well, I think there's two things for me at the moment. I think in the past 24 hours, that the Avalanche push, obviously they've had Citibank recently with real world asset tokenization. You've got the gaming conference going on at the moment, which seems to be pretty bullish. And now this meme coin push. And I feel like this meme coin push is more trying to create a culture, a cultural, because I see meme coins as kind of like tokenized community, tokenized culture. So that I guess they're trying to inject that within the chain as well, something that Solana has. So it's interesting to see what their strategy is and how they're kind of pushing to the next stage. But that, and then also the CryptoValley stuff is super interesting. Some people have made a lot of money, but we're trying to work out, is it the right time to enter, or would we just get wrecked?
Yeah, I think we're going to get into all of that stuff in a little bit. I want to look at some specific price action, see if there's anything interesting that we can see here. I'm sharing it on the screen, the Mintify heat map for people watching in. Let's talk about it for the people just listening in. Got Pixels Farmland up 15%. Digidaigaku Genesis up 50%. Memes by 6529 up 14%. Moonbirds up 13%. parallel avatars up 11. Remember, parallel avatars were one of the groups of NFTs which was targeted by the NIM airdrop people, and I think they did actually very well out of that. And actually prime token holders as well. So again, we're seeing that narrative continue to play out where people who are holding particular NFTs are being targeted by protocols as good people to get their tokens in the hands of. Question for you, Sammy, something I've been thinking about, and I've seen this idea posted on the timeline. This was the question. Do you think that NFT holders are in some way, how do I phrase this? Do you think NFT holders are like more likely to bag hold something because they'll believe in something than the traditional meme coin holders? Because one of the things I've been reading is that, like, for example, Bohm, the pre-sale for Bohm, where you had that connection, that the holders had a connection to the artist. They're probably like NFT holders who bought into that pre-sale, and they're far more likely to just be like, no, I bought this because I like it. I bought it because I support it, rather than like specifically out for a trade. And so when it comes to these protocols targeting particular people, is there something about NFT holders that are more likely to be naive bag holders and maybe just hold it and not sell it? Like, do you think there's any truth to that? I don't know if I expressed it perfectly, but what are your thoughts there?
I think Boehm's a bit unique because you have actually got the artist that's launched the token, whereas I think if you're airdrop tokens from a protocol, unless you think that the project that you have that strong feeling about is going to have some future collaboration with that protocol, then I don't see why they would have that attachment to keep it. I mean, I look at the gods potentially with Wormhole, and they talk about it wasn't just a bridge. Like, I feel like there's probably going to be some integration there, but I don't necessarily think that holding the Wormhole token is top priority. I think they see it as a liquidity event where they can sell it without having to sell the NFT. But I could be proven wrong. I guess time will tell as we see Pudgy sell a number of assets, whether it's Dime, NIM, all this kind of stuff. So,
okay. I actually think that's very fair. I think it's a fair point. Bohm was very, very unique. And as with most things which are like outliers and big winners, there's often like something unique about it, which makes it irreplicable. Like you just can't do that again. Like, and I take your point that protocols are like faceless, characterless in some ways. And so they need to take time to build like the connection with the people in some respect. Interesting idea, but also an interesting idea that maybe NFT holders are like could be more susceptible to holding these things for longer. Just an interesting idea I've got on my mind at the moment. I do want to stay on not NFTs, on airdrops for a little bit, because I think it's been a big week for people in that arena, also for ourselves. So I want to do a little bit of a deep dive for the next 10 minutes before we get into the rest of the headlines to give people an idea of what best practice is at the moment, what are we thinking about, how things have played out for us. The first take I want to share from the timeline is this one by DFarmer, which is more to do with like how protocols go about airdrops. And then I'll go into explaining one of the big wins I had this week and how it kind of played out on the restaking side. But this was his take. I'm going to read it out for people listening, sharing it for the people watching on video. Some random thoughts on airdrops in general from this NIM airdrop, which was just announced yesterday. NIM Network didn't ask me any grind set bullshit, nor to open up any attack surface via annoying social media activations. They didn't force me to engage, so I absolutely 100% will. It's an actual airdrop, nor a claim or a bullshit connect this to connect that where hundreds get wrecked. This should be industry standard always. The amount of people getting ruined can be mitigated exponentially by making airdrops again. Like, we have actually got into the habit of calling airdrops, anything where you have to go and claim something an airdrop. And technically that's not the case. The next point, parallel holders are getting allocation. I can see a trend forming here. Just like Pudgies who also get allocation, if Prime becomes a target of airdrops and activations, the flywheel grows exponentially. Dymension stakers starting to eat, they get the biggest portion. This is only the first of many, many airdrops coming to Dymension stakers. People in here have the attention span of a meth addict gerbil and have already been crying because of no free money. Bet on quality and zoom out. So a few points here I want to make. He goes on to say a few more things. But I think the first question is, what do you think about this idea that airdrops need to be airdrops? Forget the engagement farming, the endless thing going on and on. Like, I mean, obviously Portal did very, very well from that. This is a different one. We don't know the value of it yet. Like, do you have a preference for how these things should be done? Do you understand that sometimes the engagement is actually a benefit for the protocol and the value of the token? What are your thoughts there?
I'm with DFarmer in the sense that it just makes sense to go back to what, like as it says on the tin, just do an airdrop rather than having to do this engagement farming stuff. I do get that. I mean, I think the reason why Portal did so well is because it was everywhere. So like from a marketing standpoint, it was really good. But I think it did rub a lot of people up the wrong way, and probably people didn't participate because they associated it with like that negative connotation around that engagement farming thing. So I don't know whether it'll be interesting to see whether Block does equally as well, because it's a similar strategy that's going on at the moment. Same team behind it, so it'll be interesting to see if it's two for two. But I do agree that the NIM stuff. I mean, I wasn't really across it. I just so happened to be staking Dymension to get an allocation, but it just shows that if you participate and you engage, you stake, you vote on governance proposals and things like that, then that's ultimately what you should be rewarding. And doing it in a coveted kind of way, a bit hidden, it suggests that, okay, well, we can work out who our true organic participants are, and we can reward those directly. And actually, those people are probably going to be more sticky with that ecosystem and remain in there, as opposed to people who are purely engaging in an inorganic way for the token. So that's probably my view.
Yeah, look, I think this is all completely fair. Funky, I see with your hand raised. Maybe I'll come to you in just a second. I think it ultimately is a kind of a case by case basis. I think this is like a kind of ideal scenario. Your token is so valuable, it's so known amongst people that you'll just get it and everyone knows it and it's valuable straight away, right? But I think that there can be merit from the marketing perspective of trying to engage people. And I mean, ultimately, that's one of the things that happens in this space, where people get very upset very quickly with all kinds of things. They're upset if there's no marketing, then they're upset with there's too much marketing. And it's like, well, what are you supposed to do? Like, every single person knew what Portal was. And okay, then suddenly people started to get annoyed because there's too much marketing. It's like, well, can there even be such thing as too much marketing when you're trying to launch a product or token? I don't know. So I can see it both ways. I do sympathize with the aspect of like, look, it does make people vulnerable. And this is not to do with the marketing, but like the fact that you need to go claim stuff. I think that would be nicer if the workflow is like, look, can people stop getting wrecked by searching it on Twitter, clicking some random link, thinking that they need to claim, and then it's a wallet drainer. So I sympathize with that aspect. But the idea that you can have too much marketing, you know, I think people would be equally up in arms if there was not enough marketing. So I'm not sure how these protocols are supposed to win sometimes. But interesting idea, nevertheless. Funky, I want to touch in with you. I think you had a take here. What are your thoughts on the extent to which protocols should be engaging and pushing their token or product?
I mean, I think you bring up some good points, and I like Sammy. What I did, I didn't have a whole lot of Dymension. I just staked it. I did the voting. I just kind of got engaged, and so I got the NIM airdrop. But I think anybody as an individual can always just mute that. If I remember the Portal thing going crazy, and I saw a lot of people saying like, "I'm just muting Portal or anything relating to Portal." So any individual has a choice to sort of ignore that, but you fade these kinds of opportunities at your own risk, because then it's basically free money if you're willing to get involved and engage. So I think we're just starting to see the very beginnings. I mean, I know it sounds crazy that here we are near the end of March. I think we're going to see a full year of airdrops, maybe even more. I mean, it's just there's so much stuff being built in so many ways that people are going to try and capitalize this, because it is great marketing at the end of the day.
Very good point. I think that is completely fair. I want to make a contrarian point as well before I give a little talk through the EtherFi airdrop and some of the strategy there for restaking. This is something that no one said, probably because it conflicts with their bag bias, but I'm going to say it anyway. And bear in mind, I'm a Dymension staker. I'm pretty sure I have thousands of dollars staked in Dymension. But one of the arguments there from DFarm is, you know, the quality stuff is going to get you thousands worth of dollars, right? It's going to be worth thousands of dollars. But arguably, if you look at the Dymension chart, which was as high as, let's see, how far can I take it back? I've got this up on video for people watching on X and YouTube, but for the people not, like at the start of March, Dymension, sorry, it went as high as over $8. Now we're down in the last month, 17%, down almost 20, almost 20% to 5.8. Is this airdrop going to, is the airdrops kind of priced in some respect? Like, am I actually up? If I just sold the Dymension at $7 to $8, does that account for the extra coins that I'm going to get from this NIM airdrop and any other airdrops that are going to come in the future? Plus, and this is important, plus the time it takes me to stay on top of it, to monitor it, to talk about it, to consider it, manage the position, etc., etc. It's not just a pure value versus value thing where it's like, oh, if I'd sold it here, does the airdrop equal that? Because I'm spending all this time having to monitor that position, and that happens. The more coins you have, there's a cost to managing those positions. Sammy, do you have any thoughts on that? Because that's something I was thinking. It's like, well, I've got a bunch of positions open at the moment, and yes, okay, NIM is going to be worth something. I'm pretty sure. I can't remember exactly how many tokens I have. Even if it was $1,000 or so, like, is that the amount that I have? Is that more than the amount that the Dymension tokens that I have has lost in the last 30, 40 days? I'm not sure 100%. What are your thoughts there?
I mean, it comes down to opportunity cost, right? So if you need that liquidity and you think you can outperform where you think that token's going to go, then it makes sense. But also your time horizons. If you've got a medium to long-term time horizon, aka you're going to hold these tokens until peak bull euphoria, then I think you're going to make a lot of money that way. But if you're going to trade it, try and time the bottom and top, it's probably not going to end well. There's very few people that can do that, and even then, I would say it's probably more down to luck than skill. So I don't know. I think, like, if I look at Dymension, like where could it get to? Like, start trying to benchmark it against. I know people say don't do it against previous all-time highs, but it's a good starting point, because mentally that's where people go to. So I think there is some truth to it. Will it go higher? Well, if Bitcoin goes higher and the whole market cap of crypto goes higher, then arguably you could say that those market caps of those tokens could probably go significantly higher. So ultimately that means the price is going to go up. So I think if you had that initial Dymension airdrop, you stake it, irrespective of whether it goes down to $5 today and it was at $8 yesterday, it could be at $20 or $30 in 6 months. So you never know. I think you just need to be careful about, do you need that capital now to do something else with it, whether it's something in real life, or do you need it to, do you have something that you really want to invest in, or that you don't have the capital for now, then maybe it's worth selling. So I think it depends on your personal circumstances, but I think with a short-term time horizon, it's very hard to say.
Yeah, look, I think there's some fair points there, but I guess my point is less to even to do with time horizons. It's just like, is this? I mean, you could make that argument for almost any single coin. Like, if you're bullish in the market, everything will go up, and then you'd never sell anything. So, yeah, I guess is the value of all of the airdrops going to be worth more than the token at any point? Where I guess, yeah, you kind of need to think at which point you're going to make the comparison. I definitely think right now, like, based on these prices, I don't think, I need to check the maths, I don't think that the NIM airdrop accounts for the value lost in the Dymension token. That's just my instinct.
Yeah, if you'd sold the top, I agree.
Exactly.
But to be able to sell the top is like, it'd be very impressive.
Yeah. So interesting discussion anyway, because I do think we're moving into a meta where everyone's just like, yeah, stake. You're going to get this, you're going to get that, you're going to get this. And it's like, well, are you really going to be able to get as much as you think that you're going to get? A reasonable question to ask, at least to have in your mind. Okay, final thing before we get into a bigger discussion on the headlines today. And in keeping with this focus on airdrops, I wanted to share something from the Snapshot, not the one that's pinned up top, my newsletter, which goes out every single Friday. It is the 114th edition, which has gone out today. I'm going to share something which I wrote in there. If you're not subscribed, by the way, what are you doing? Get a subscription in. You get a nice article every single Friday. Today, was focused, although the investor section was focused on a $35,000 EtherFi airdrop. I'm just going to talk you through that in just a moment. As you can see, I do like a NFT market roundup. And then I go through some notable sales, nice little clip from Sammy dropping some bars on our YouTube channel into the newsletter this week as well. And then we get into the investor focus. Okay, so I'm going to talk you through this because I think restaking is one of the big potential things for Ethereum at the moment. Everyone is always talking about how, okay, Bitcoin's got the ETF, Solana's got all the retail attention, ETH is like lost in the middle, and I just don't buy that at all. I think restaking is a really big deal, and the EtherFi drop earlier this week consolidated that entirely for me. It ended up being like a $4 billion or so FDV or something like that. I'm just going to talk you through it. So this week I received $35,000 worth of EtherFi tokens. Here is how. First, I actually wrote an article on January the 5th. I wrote about EtherFi and how they could do an airdrop. And I had said you can stake ETH with EtherFi, for the people who are not familiar, by minting ETH and automatically have your ETH restaked to Eigenlayer. Eigenlayer is the protocol where you restake ETH. I had said airdrop potential. ETH holders will earn EtherFi loyalty points and Eigenlayer points. So you like kind of kill two birds with one stone there. All things being equal, it looks like EtherFi is the only place you can get both native loyalty points as well as Eigenlayer points right now. So I'd written that in January, and that's not necessarily true anymore. I don't even know if it was 100% true at the time. That's just the analysis I did of the protocols I was reviewing. And there are multiple there are multiple protocols now where you can get protocol points and Eigenlayer points at the same time. And this is what I did. So I deposited 6 ETH, which was probably around 12K at the time, but is now worth around 21K. I also minted one of these EtherFan NFTs, which I believe you did as well, Sammy. A few of us did as well. It ended up like you could do $200, and it looks like they gave $2,000 worth of allocation to any person who minted any one of these NFTs. That's a pretty good thing. So I did that as well. And then I also shared my referral link, which I think not just with restaking protocols, but in general, the referral process I think is quite important. Like that does get you a significant boost. So I don't know if it would have been as significant had it not been for that referral process. But that was it. So I deposited my 6 ETH just under 4 months ago. In 116 days, my $12,000 deposit turned into 54,000. 6 ETH initial, which was 12,000. That's now worth 21. And there was $33,000 worth of EtherFi tokens. So that's 54,000 in total, which I think was a good return. Concluding point for people to note, nothing here suggests every single restaking protocol will do exactly the same, but it does show how it's helpful to experiment with leading protocols before other people. Something I'm interested in next when it comes to restaking is Swell. You might have heard a good friend of the show and listener right now, Bread, speaking about Swell on the show as well. I highly recommend you find his profile in the audience and give him a follow. He's producing great content on the timeline about his strategies when it comes to restaking. So that's just again, talking about airdrops, I thought it'd be helpful to show what can happen in a relatively short period of time with some of these restaking protocols, because I do think restaking is one of the biggest potential things for Ethereum in general. It's not without risk, as we've discussed before. There are various risks involved, but still interesting to articulate. Sam, any reflections from you on the EtherFi airdrop at the start of this week? Any reflections on restaking moving forward? And then we'll get into a discussion on the main headlines.
Yeah, just on the referral point, I'm pretty sure if your referees had deposited more than 0.1 ETH, you would get 10% of anything that they deposited as well in terms of points. So that can be a pretty good way of accumulating points if you're able to get that distribution. I think I've seen people on, say, for instance, Parcel for that fund. I know this isn't restaking, but
sure,
in terms of referral programs, like people have got millions of points from referrals, but barely anything from LPing or trading. So you can make quite a big significant return from that. I know Grass do something similar. I think I'm up to about 250 referrals on that. And someone's estimated that that's like $30 per referral per month, kind of as potential grass token yield. So there's ways that you can make a lot of money even if you don't have the capital. And Eigenlayer, you have that as well, whether you do that through Renzo, Swell, EtherFi. And I think back in the day in December, I think the Eigenlayer cap was hit, and that's where you said, B-Check, in your, I think it was in your newsletter, or whether it was on the timeline as well, that EtherFi was probably the only way to get in to do that. And actually it's become pretty lucrative. So kudos there.
Yeah, and now there's a bunch of, and the interesting thing is there's just so many of these protocols now. So you can kind of, I don't know, you want to split them up between the protocols, you want to specialize in one and go all in there. I don't know, it's up to you to kind of decide that. But I think restaking is just a very, very big deal. So going to be paying a lot more attention to that. Wanted to bring that to our listeners' attention too. So let's move on, getting into the proper headlines, the meat of the show now. I wonder what direction to take this first. I think I want to leave CryptoValleys just a little bit because I think that's extra fascinating. We're going to need a bit more time there. So let's do the AVAX headline first, just to set this up for people. Avalanche Memecoin Rush offers $1 million in rewards for traders. I'm just going to share the article on screen for the people listening, watching in, and read it out for the people listening. The Avalanche Foundation is capitalizing on the meme coin craze with incentives to boost meme coins like Kimbo, Cock Inu, and Gecko. So here we go. We've got some further details. This initiative follows the foundation's recent acquisition of 5 Avalanche meme-based coins: the dog-themed Kimbo, chicken-themed Cock Inu, gecko-themed Gecko, technology joke Tech, and No Chill as part of its digital culture initiative. They said, in the same tradition as the foundation's successful past incentive programs, Memecoin Rush is designed to help scale liquidity and drive momentum, only this time for the community ecosystem coin ecosystem on Avalanche. In the first phase, so here's some of the details. In the first phase of Memecoin Rush program, Avalanche is launching liquidity incentives in partnership with StakeHut and Trader Joe, 2 Avalanche native DeFi platforms. The Trader Joe exchange is not to be confused with, okay, that's not relevant. Any more details that we have here? Sammy, what are your reflections on this kind of incentive to provide liquidity on AVAX at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, I think the way they're going about it is effectively trying to create that cultural feeling to get people to remain on that chain. As I mentioned earlier, I think the gaming stuff that's going on at the moment and the push into gaming that they're doing is pretty interesting. That IMX and Ronin seem to be kind of high performers in that regard, and they seem to specifically Ronin and Avalanche seem to support community members, content creators and stuff really well. So I can see that their strategy is kind of pushing into supporting their community as opposed to just creating a chain and trying to create applications that they hope people will use. They're trying to inject that bit of culture and community, which is super interesting.
Do you think, Sammy, though, do you think this is even possible? Like, one of the challenges Base seems to be having at the moment is that, I mean, I don't know if this is fair at all, but the criticism on the timeline is that like all the people on Solana trading the degen stuff are like, I don't know, 22-year-old degens, and all the people trying to build meme coins on Base are like 38-year-old developers or something. Like, is it possible to kind of inject a culture in this way by incentivizing things in this way instead of it just being completely organic, coming from the timeline, coming from people sharing it? What are your thoughts there?
Well, I think Solana is a little bit unique because you had the whole FTX debacle. A lot of people lost a lot of money. You have a lot of that support from the community to get through it together. So you have that bonding process.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think Base or Avalanche has had that.
Yeah.
Whether they can do that inorganically, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what they do and how they go about it. But I mean, I've heard somewhere that the best way to form a bond is through trauma. So I guess so I'm guessing that Solana, they've had that trauma. So a lot of the ecosystem participants, they came back stronger. They created a lot of applications and developed a lot of stuff that people kind of just stuck to. So it has that culture, but I just don't know whether you can inject that or not. So it'd be interesting to see if Jesse does that for Base or Avalanche do that through this Memecoin thing. But yeah, it's interesting.
All right, noted for the next modern market meetup. We'll have something deeply traumatic as part of the schedule.
Looking forward to it.
To make sure that we get along much better. Jack, your hand is raised on this. We want some quick points on this. So we'll hear Jack, we'll hear T-Row. Quick ones because we want to get on to CryptoValleys. What's up, my man?
Yeah, man. I think for me, sometimes I just go by like how things immediately make me laugh.
Yeah.
And Coquinu, for me, like when you said it, even you couldn't keep a straight face. So I feel like that one may have legs. Generally, I'm not sure how like trying to meme coin yourself into existence works for an actual chain, but just purely based on the use of Coquinu, I reckon this one's going to be a success. So all I need from you, from Modern Market, is just how do I buy this as quickly as I can to front run as many people as I can, because I think this one's going to send.
Okay, well, it seems like the two places you can buy them from are Stake Hut and Trader Joe. So, and Trader Joe, helpfully in the official article, when I just started saying the Trader Joe exchange is not to be confused with the popular American grocery store. So don't confuse it, Jack. Decrypt thought it was important to make sure you're not confused about that. Don't go to that grocery store chain to get it and ask for it, or any grocery store actually. T-Row, quick take on this, and then we're moving forward. What are your thoughts on the Avalanche meme coin ecosystem trying to kind of inject this culture into it? What are your thoughts, my friend?
Very quickly, I was actually in a Trader Joe's yesterday. I live in America, and I did shopping there. So, bang, you hit that right on the nose. But the thing is, I think about with them putting out 5 coins and kind of creating them, it's kind of like forcing it. You almost want a community to, F around and find out and, just, do things and be like, oh crap. And then there's something that comes, without it being forced. It just happens organically. And I think that's what you connect with. You build a community and experiences, and you experience somebody in a Discord or something where they had an experience and it was funny because this happened, blah, blah, blah. And then you play off of it and you run memes and everything else. So
I get it, man. I completely know what you mean. I think that's the reservation, right? Just a slight reservation that, like, can you really manufacture this in the way that they like to? I appreciate the attempt. I think it's an interesting thing for them to attempt to do, because they obviously, people know that it's valuable to have a thriving meme coin ecosystem. So that's clearly what they want to go after. So thanks so much for those insights, guys. Let's get into the CryptoValleys stuff, because this is super interesting from 2 perspectives for me. So I'll give you just a quick summary of what is going on. And I think there's 2 aspects to that. Then we'll dive into some takes on this game, as well as some of the trading activity. We'd also love to hear from Evan on this, because a lot of the trading is taking place on Mintify, and we have him up on stage with us as the CEO of Mintify. So CryptoValleys is, I guess you describe it as a GameFi project built on Blast. I'm just going to share the screen for people watching in, but we'll talk it through for the people listening. CryptoValleys is a GameFi project built on Blast. People have been getting like very, very excited about it. So the simple guide to CryptoValleys, this is shared by AVAX, pretty much expert on the gaming side of Web3, a good friend we met very recently. He describes it like this: there's a CryptoValleys game loop. There is a market, and from which you buy crops. You then reveal your crops. You then plant your crops at your farm. You then have to harvest your crops. And then you have 2 options. You either get yield or you get locked yield. For your yield, you either spend your yield to level up and upgrade your valley, which kind of takes you back to the beginning where you buy more crops and reveal crops again, or you can stake your yield for X yield to earn fees from rewards. Alternatively, from your harvest, if you get locked yield, you can then unlock the lock yield once a week, but you have to be on level 10 in order to do that. So it's like this proper DeFi farming game. A lot of people have been comparing it to DeFi Kingdoms, which was around, I think, in the last cycle, though Sammy might be able to provide some additional context there. Some further information, Easy tweeted this out, saying, I'm now farming virtual cabbage for a virtual coin. I only get part of the virtual coin up front and the rest unlocks over time. unless I level up my virtual farm. To level up my virtual farm, I need to spend more of the virtual coin. This virtual coin is sadly going up in price. And in terms of the price action, it's actually been pretty insane. This yield token, I'm just showing this for the people watching in. The price action is pretty crazy. And I was in a few conversations on Spaces yesterday with people who got in at like $1 or $2. And it went as high as $17 yesterday and has since kind of retraced down to about $9 at the moment. But this yield token is going up and up in price. Interesting game. Seems to be catching a bid, seems to be catching some attention. Sammy, I'm going to stop there and go to you now for your headline thoughts, and then we'll talk through some of the additional knock-on effects of this.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it feels like, so I don't know if anyone was around for Wolf Game back in the day. That kicked off, a lot of people got into that. It became a Wales game. I don't know to what extent that this is the same kind of concept, because ultimately, I think Apex made another post that what a lot of people don't realize is to unlock that yield that you mentioned in that diagram, you need to have about 40K at the current spot price. So
yeah,
that's quite a significant sum of money. So ultimately, I think at some point, people are going to start unlocking their yield. There'll be like a massive supply onto the market, and then that price is going to crash. So it's just like, is it a game of timing the market? Is it a race to try and get to that level 10, or how does it work? So I'm just a little bit skeptical. I think at this point, I would be concerned entering without like fully understanding the game. And I think the little man might get wrecked if that's the case, but I don't know for certain because I haven't played it. I've just been kind of sidelined watching it from a distance. But I think there'll be plenty of other games, and it could catalyze a lot of interest on Blast, particularly in the gaming side of things. So if you look at, I think Play Cambria is another game that's moved from base to Blast, and that's pretty interesting. I played that. There's some whales that are accumulating party hats. So if anyone played RuneScape back in the day, that seems to be something they're doing, ready to get for the next round. But I think we're kind of seeing a shift to the Blast ecosystem, and it'll be interesting to see how that picks up. And I think CryptoValleys has reshone that light.
Interesting stuff. Shout out to Oxy in the YouTube comment saying, "God damn it, Sammy, another traumatic reminder, the amount of sheep I had lost on." Interesting you brought Wolf Game up. I want to share this take from Boffin, who was on the Thread Guy Spaces I was co-hosting yesterday, talking through their strategy. Now, a couple of points. One, you're completely right to say that you need a lot of capital to do well here. This account, I'm pretty sure, I can't remember the number 100%, but I'm pretty sure they've pulled millions of dollars together to play this game. And they got in at about $1 to $2 of yield token. And in this post, which I'm sharing on the show, he explains like how to win in this type of game. They were talking about comparisons with DeFi Kingdom, and two key takeaways are these. One, when I say play, the winning condition of this game is simple. Upgrade your farm as much as possible. You need to get to at least level 10, but 15 is optimal. And you need to spam the fuck out of premium seeds to increase your locked stack. You do this to maximize your weekly Sage returns. That's the win condition. Ideally, you wait until the last moment to maximize your return on the weekly return. And so the winning condition, this is key, the winning condition is to be both early and maximize your locked tokens ASAP. So basically, the later you get to this game, the harder it's going to be for you to be in a winning position. And they were very open about that. Like they were literally saying, like, if you're coming with a small amount and you're going to be really late, like don't try to go up necessarily against like these bigger people. I don't know what the best way to participate would be, but they were saying A, it's going to be really hard for you, and B, there will become a turning point where everyone decides to sell everything. So like it's kind of a game of chicken as well, where you're building up your farms and everyone's doing that for a certain amount of time. But at some point in time, that's going to change and people are not going to want this, and they're going to want the real money because it's huge amounts at stake. So I think that's a really interesting perspective to share, given how seriously it's being taken by people with a lot of capital, but also how like the attention definitely seems to be moving there in the last few days. I wanted to I think that's probably enough on the game, Sammy, unless you wanted to say anything else.
Yeah, I mean, I think the stuff that actually appeals is the the game theory behind it, and it does feel a little bit so similar to Friendtech with the whole SocialFi stuff. Like that whole 3-3 thing was the optimal choice until it wasn't, until it all came crashing down. So it's, yeah, I think it is a bit of game theory, which does appeal to a lot of people in the crypto space, because ultimately we are degens. And I think even if you look at Blur, that's PvP. So if you can make money in a gamified way, it's people flock to it. So excuse the pun.
Yeah, look, I think that's completely fair. I want to kind of pivot the conversation while we're on this though to Blast, and the kind of activity going there. We're fortunate to have the founder of Mintify on stage with us. Would love to hear Evan's thoughts in just a second on like the activity on CryptoValleys. As we said, I'm just going to share the screen again to get some of this data in front of you. CryptoValleys characters, because basically there was a launch as well yesterday where they had profile pictures. I'm sharing them here. They kind of teleported straight to a 0.4 ETH floor. I think that there's like a free mint component, which might be around later today, but this was like the first aspect of the mint. And these NFTs did $2 million volume in the first 30 minutes, $3 million of active listings and bids. So pretty exciting stuff there. Evan, welcome to the stage, my friend. First question, like, how do you think this launch went? Was this the best launch on Blast so far? How are things going? Are you noticing like this attention moving to Blast as well?
Gem. Yeah, absolutely. The launch was incredible, actually. We battled. It was a good opportunity for us to battle test our Blast marketplace. I think they crossed 3 million at this point, maybe even a bit more than that. Yeah, I think that my 2 cents when it comes down like to NFTs and Blast, I just feel like Blast has this incredible opportunity for pretty much dominating most of the low caps or gamified type of NFTs in the coming months. And the only true competitor there would be Base, but I'm a big fan of Blast. When we started, we essentially built the marketplace within like 48 hours the moment they announced it, which is like ridiculous. We put like a couple nighters there. But once we did a deep dive on the dev side of things with like the yield, the gas rebate, the protocol rewards, it just makes sense, right? Like trading on ETH feels so 2021 compared to like trading on Blast. And we had some whales yesterday trading on our platform, and the whole experience on how fast you're settling transactions, the gas, and everything in between. It just feels so good trading on Blast right now. And CryptoValleys killed it. I think it's by far the best mint on Blast. It's like what, a 3-week-old essentially chain. But my bet is that we're going to see quite a few more of these in the next few weeks.
Interesting. Really, really interesting insight. I want to pick up on something you said there, Evan, because when we were speaking separately, like that kind of struck me as well. There's been a lot of people complaining about Blast, like there's not enough stuff to do, not enough being built yet. But it seems like you as a builder and your team, when you saw the opportunity, you were like, no, we got to do this right now. 48 hours, 8 hours later, a few all-nighters later, you had the thing ready to go. Why did you decide to pivot so quickly and so aggressively to be like, no, this is a real opportunity?
Yeah, it's a good question. Well, it was an obvious opportunity to us. So we're obviously, most of the folks in the space were expecting like for Blur to be available on day one. So as soon as we saw the tweet, I think it was right around like 5 p.m. Eastern on like that Thursday, we're in a call with the full DevOps team, and we're like, damn, Blur is not launching. So we're like, okay, let's get started. So we took advantage of that opportunity. We did a nice tweet, said, Blast NFT trading not in April, next week, and we launched the following Monday. Basically, we had it ready by Saturday, but we're obviously testing it. My thinking here is that like there isn't much to do on Blast. There was a lot of hype end of February when Blast launched, but people have to realize that there's like hundreds and hundreds of DApps and products that are being built. It's just impossible to build like good products, like extremely, like within like just days, essentially, right? Like we launched our Blast marketplace, but in reality, what folks don't understand is that we've been building Mintify for 2 years. So the fact that we have this framework that we can easily adapt into like EVMs, we can launch on Base tomorrow if we want to, right? But that's like the work of like 2 years. Most of the DApps that exist today on Blast, they essentially, started working on their DApps like for what, 2 to 3 months now. So it's kind of like expected not to have that many dApps available or things to do on the Blast ecosystem. On the other hand, there's also the issue of like, traders or users of the Blast ecosystem don't realize exactly how the whole ecosystem works with like Blast Gold and points. So they're hesitant, right, for like interacting with dApps, because they're like, okay, if I put my funds into like a TVL and into a pool, I'm gonna lose my points. Most people don't know that. No, your points are gonna carry on, and then you're also gonna get Blast Gold. Not even most of the dApps. I've talked to quite a few dApps. I've talked to the Blast team. We even got their support on Twitter a couple of times, which is incredible. They just, there isn't enough information or educational content for traders to realize the potential here. Like Blast Gold, for example, is like way more powerful than Blast Points. We had to deploy like a standalone contract from the Mintify side to essentially reward our users. We're going to be distributing 100% of the Blast Gold back to the traders on the Blast marketplace. But it just feel like there's just not enough content. But that's going to change very, very quickly in the coming days and weeks.
Yeah, really interesting. I completely agree with you that there's just like this lack of, well, I think there's two things actually. There's one, there is a lack of content, lack of understanding, and maybe that's a combination of people's responsibility that they should be kind of plugging that gap, but also pretty crazy expectations from people in terms of like what they expect from applications and what they expect from like potential return. So the fact that there wasn't necessarily loads of things to do immediately. I wrote this tweet a couple of days ago. Would love to hear your thoughts on this, Evan, and then Sammy as well. Like I wrote this tweet the other day, like Blast, and I don't know if this is the right comparison, but I was like, guys, what are people complaining about at the moment? Blast is basically like a bank. You just put you put your money in there, and it's, you know that you're going to get some yield at some point in time, but you don't necessarily have to ask all the time of your bank, like, what can I do? What can I do with my money? What can I do? What can I do? What can I do? And I think on some level, and look, I know that there's meant to be more things built out and there will be more things to do, and that is the absolute intention. But my point is that I think in this space, people are like addicted to clicking buttons in the same way that they overtrade all the time. They're addicted to clicking buttons, like give us buttons to click. If there's no buttons to click, then it must be bad. But at the same time, like when you park your capital in other places, in other types of investments, whether it's a bank, whether it's something else, you don't necessarily need to be doing things with it every 5 seconds. So that was one of my things on people's expectations. Evan, would love to hear your thoughts on that, and then also hear from Sammy.
Yeah, I feel like we're all addicted and we're FOMOing into like new chains in our space, and we're like, I only got like a 3x return. Where's my 100x, right?
Yeah.
And we're all expecting, including myself, like, even though I'm a dev at heart, and I realize how hard it is to build, like I think that I was expecting a bit more during the first week of Blast. But then, when I sat down and realized like what's being built, what's available, as well as all the big bank competitors, essentially the big bank winners, rolling out their products, I'm like, okay, that's a great start, right? Because you also have to be very mindful about the security risks as well. Sure. Because when you're rushing something into the market, like you saw what happened with a couple of protocols having bugs, not being able to withdraw. Yeah. So obviously that's not the ideal experience. And I'm sure we're going to see more of that, unfortunately, in the coming weeks, because everyone is just rushing their products, to the market. That said, I just feel like what Blast is doing as a protocol is just genius. Like how they're rolling out the protocol rewards as well. I just feel like it's going to be one of the most sustainable ecosystems for the next few years. And I'm definitely, and there's definitely the expectation as well for most of the low cap NFTs, gamified type of NFTs to move on Blast. We've had a lot of requests. We're launching a launchpad as well next week. We already work with 4 projects there, and we've had a lot of requests for like, building a bridge from like ETH or, to like Blast and this and that. So we're exploring all the possibilities from our end, but I just feel like the next 2 to 3 months are going to be quite exciting.
That's awesome, man. And I appreciate that perspective, and I think it's important to articulate that, not only because that is more in line with my perspective, but just because it's important to have a variety of perspectives. And I've seen a lot of kind of FUD around Blast, and just that it exists, that there are people who are super bullish and interested in what's going on as well. So thanks so much for that insight, man. Really helpful to hear that perspective. Sammy, what are your final thoughts on this? We've coming towards the end of the show. Maybe just 1 minute, top reflection, top thing to note for Blast moving forward.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with Evan. I think the lack of patience for people, and people seeing stuff that's going on in Solana, people making 100x games, they're chasing the shiny object, and that shiny object is kind of coming back to Blast now, and it's currently at base. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens over the next 2-3 months, but I'm bullish.
Yeah, fair point. Like, and again, in the same way, it might not be fair to compare one protocol with Mintify, for example, who've been building for years and they're just starting out. Completely unfair to compare Blast with Solana, which is also like really battle tested, been through all kinds of things. So look, interesting perspective. I'm glad we had that conversation. Hope it was helpful for everyone with us. But that is the end of our show. We hope you enjoyed. Just a reminder, we do this every single day, Monday to Friday at 7 a.m. Eastern time. We go through everything to do with the NFT market, crypto market, and the more degenerate side of things too, to try to make some or a lot of money in this space. We'll be back with you on Monday again. Thank you so much to my co-host, Sammy. Thank you to our speakers, Evan, Oxy, Funky, Jack, and Tiro. And thank you so much for joining us again this week. We hope to see you again on Monday. Take care. Have a wonderful weekend. We will see you next week. Bye-bye.